True Crime Society podcast contains adult themes and violence and is not intended for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. And if you'd like to skip the intro or move to any specific part of the podcast, please refer to the timestamps listed in the episode description. Thank you. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the True Crime Society podcast with Stephanie and Olivia. It is August 15th, 2024. We are still in summer here in New York. It feels like it's cooling off maybe a little, but I think it's like the false fall where it's like tricking you. And then Bath and Body Works starts putting out their fall scents and you start seeing Halloween decorations. You're like, oh my God, it's finally fall. But I know next week we're going to get hit with like mid 80 degree weather again because I usually go to that fair that I go to every year that I'm sure I've talked to you about. I feel like every time I go, it's always the end of August. It's always super hot. So we're in the false fall right now.
It's meant to be like really nice here. I think it's meant to be like 24, 25 next week, which I feel like I'm just doing my dodgy conversion, but I feel like that's in the probably even early 70s, like late 70s, early 80s. So I'm like, spring has arrived right on schedule, but it'll probably get cold again.
Yeah, it's like an awkward time of year in between seasons. I do have a story that I can talk about that I saved to talk about everyone's favorite co-host, Peep, and how she really caused me a massive headache, a big fiasco. So as we all know, I've moved. I'm in a house that I've been doing work. Oh my God, the turkeys are outside. They're back
right
again.
On schedule.
It is now. And the whole family, there's the children. I think this was on Patreon last time, but I have like a whole squad of turkeys with babies. They're like kind of like teens now that go through my yard. There's probably like 15 of them. It's ridiculous. But they were gone for a long time and I was worried something happened to them, but they returned last week. And then today, actually, when I was driving home, they like all ran out in front of my car. I gasped. I was like, excuse me, don't make me run you over because that would be devastating. So yeah, they're here. Anyways, back to Peep. So our hallway, we think that because it's like the front hallway where the front door is. I don't know if like the people who used to live here smoked maybe outside, but we noticed when it was like super humid, the walls would get like these brown kind of like drips on them, not to sound gross, but just around where the door is. So I looked it up and said that it is probably like nicotine or tar in the walls. So we're like, okay, we need to paint this hallway. We have to paint it anyways because some of the paint's like chipping. So I went to Home Depot and I did research. I got this like heavy duty oil-based primer that's meant to cover up nicotine and all that. And the guy dyed it like tinted it a dark gray color because we're painting the hallway a darker color. So it's like thick and sticky, this primer. It's really kind of hard to paint with. Overall, it's a headache. Like if you don't have to use this type of primer, don't. Me and Mike are dreading this already because we are sick of painting and doing all this. And so we have the gallon, we open it, and we're like mixing it, and we're about to pour it into the little trays and stuff. And so we put the paint lid upside down on the floor, and we have like a tarp thing to cover the floor right there. And out of nowhere, Peep gets the fucking zoomies, as she sometimes does, runs full speed down the hallway, out of nowhere, steps right on the upside down paint lid, gets paint all over her two paws, mostly one paw, and then just keeps running. And she's running through the living room on my floors that I just had refinished before we moved in, leaving little paint paw prints all over. So I start chasing her because I'm like, oh my God, no, she's getting paint everywhere. I'm chasing her, so then she's running even more. She jumps up on our couch, which is like a light beige color, jumps up on a couch, also expensive, brand new couch, jumps up on there, jumps up into the window, and I have to like grab her. So I grab her, and then she's scared because I grabbed her, and she's like thrashing. I'm trying to hold her. She's like scratching me, getting paint all over me. And then Mike's trying to like wipe off the paint from her paws, and it's like all in her fur, on her little pooch, on her tummy. We're trying to wipe her off as best we can, but like I said, this paint is like thick. It's like sticky. So we got off what we could, and I had to put her down. She ran under the bed. We start cleaning up the floors, and luckily, since it's so thick, it kind of takes a while to dry. So it came up off the floors pretty easy, thankfully. And then there's one little spot on the couch. Seems like most of it had come off while she was running around on the floors, thankfully. So I used this stain remover I had on the couch. Luckily, it either came out or it came out enough where like you can't tell because it kind of blends in with the couch. So that was good, thank God. But then me and Mike are like, okay, we need to like Peep had this all over her fur. We don't want her licking it. And even though she has no teeth, we don't want her like eating it and getting it in her mouth. So I lure her back out and we're trying to wipe it off her. And we're like fake cuddling with her. She's like kind of laying on the bed. We're kind of holding her. We're like trying to get it off her with just like warm water and Dawn dish soap. And she's being so dramatic and she's like crying. But she's also purring because we're petting her. And it just wasn't coming out because it was so thick. So I got to the point where I had to take little scissors and I just had to start cutting her fur where it was like all sticky. So I just cut it all out. So she had a little haircut. She had a little spa day. She got soaped. She got some warm water and she got a little trim on her legs and her pooch. And she is not scarred from it. She moved on fairly quickly, it seems, and forgot all about it, but I did not.
Well, it seems like one of those comedy of errors movies,
It
like where just
was.
everything goes wrong all of a sudden.
It really was, and I left out that, like, again, I mentioned this in the Patreon, I've just been feeling very overwhelmed with all the house stuff and everything, and, like, woe is me. And so, when I finally got her after she's running around getting paint all over, like, everything, I just started, like, almost having a panic attack. I started, like, crying. I felt like I couldn't breathe for a minute. I'm, like, holding her. She's, like, trying to get away, covered in paint. And Mike's like, you have to focus right now and not cry. And I was like, okay. Because it was just, like, what the fuck else could happen? Like, this is literally worst case scenario of something I already didn't feel like doing. And now I'm, like, I spent so much time trying to clean Peep and trying to get paint off everything. And I was like, I still have to fucking paint this hallway now. So I did get a good chunk of it done. Like, I got all the walls done. I just haven't done, like, the edges and all that. But in the end, it all came together okay. But, oh my God, it was a horrible experience.
Has it stopped the drips or you haven't seen any humidity
So
yet?
far, yeah. It's been, like, good. A little less humid. Like I said, it's been a little cooler. But it definitely got rid of, like, any of the drips. Like, I haven't seen them at all. As I'm telling this story, Peep is in my lap, acting like she's a perfect little pleasant angel. But yeah, she is not. She is a witch when she wants to be, which is always. So yeah, what's up with you? Anything crazy going on?
No,
How are
I
your
feel
pets?
like I'm so boring lately. I am coming out of winter hibernation, hopefully soon. No, I've literally nothing going on. I'm trying to think if I've got any funny stories to tell. I don't.
I wish
I'm
I
very
was boring. I feel like
boring.
I'm the opposite, where it's not even fun stuff. It's just everything annoying happening. And again, I talked about on Patreon, like, I got pulled over this morning for speeding. I haven't gotten pulled over for like 10 years. I'm lucky I didn't get a ticket, so I guess that is my blessing. I feel like the universe is just like, you need to get it together and act
This
like
is
an
your
adult
wake up
now.
call. You're like, it's like you've got off, used your 9 lives, so to speak. You've got to.
Yeah, and I keep on being like, no, it's fine. I'm still gonna procrastinate literally everything I do. And I still probably will not learn my lesson, and still a week from now be like, why is everything so chaotic and disorganized, and why am I overwhelmed and upset?
What's going on?
Yeah, like, I don't get it. Anyways, we don't really have any updates like written out, but today it just came out there was like arrests made in the death of Matthew Perry, who everyone knows from Friends. He died from a ketamine overdose not too long ago, and they were investigating that, and it actually came out with a lot more information than we would have thought, so we'll probably maybe do an episode on it. But they ended up busting like some big kind of celebrity high profile-esque drug ring. There's not a ton of information out yet, but
I've got the
there is
names
some,
up if you want me to talk about that.
Yeah, if you have the article.
Yeah, so 5 people were arrested in regards to his death. One is, or 2 doctors, Dr. Salvador Placencia, Dr. Mark Chavez, and a alleged drug dealer named Jasveen Sangha. She is apparently known as the ketamine queen of LA. The other two people who were arrested were his assistant named Kenneth Iwamasa and another person named Eric Fleming. The assistant and the Eric have both pleaded guilty to conspiracy to distribute ketamine, resulting in death and serious bodily injury. So they've kind of already taken a plea deal, it seems. But yeah, the other three, it's very interesting. Two doctors. It says that Jasveen is obviously the person who gave him the ketamine. She sold him the vial that ended up killing him. So I wonder if these people will be linked to any other deaths via overdose, if it'll just be for Matthew Perry or if they're being investigated in regards to anyone else.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And they've put out some of like the text messages of after he died. I guess one of them texted one of the other ones like delete everything, delete all of the messages. And they were talking a lot of code words and things like that. There was one text message that was like, "How much do you think this moron will pay for it?" or something, talking about him. So, seems like they thought they were pretty untouchable. So it's good to see that they were caught. I did see a lot of people commenting saying like, "Oh, well, he did this to himself by doing drugs," and "Oh, wow, they don't do this for when other people, like average people, overdose," which, like, I guess is true, but I don't get the argument where it's like, isn't this a good thing? Like, they're still distributing drugs to other people. I feel like anytime you can get a drug dealer off the streets and into jail is a good thing, because I've lost a lot of people in my life from addiction and overdose. So having less drug dealers is definitely a good thing, and people who aren't going to prey on people who are addicted to drugs, because clearly they don't give a fuck about the people buying drugs from them. They're like, how much is this moron going to pay for them? And you
Yeah.
think Matthew Perry's not the only one that they're selling ketamine to. It seems like a pretty big operation. So yeah, I mean, they don't investigate overdose every overdose death like they do when it's a higher profile person, but I still don't think it's a bad thing that that's what comes out of a celebrity death, at least.
It's so dumb that they're like, make sure you delete all our messages. Like, no one's got any way to recover any messages. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, so stupid. It's like, you guys are supposed to be like big time, apparently.
Mm.
Delete all the messages, including this one. So yeah, well, I'm sure more information will come out. It only came out today, so we'll maybe do an episode on something like that if people are interested in it.
You guys know that when I record, it's Friday morning here. I have to drop the kids off to school, get up, get ready. I come back and we're recording by 8:30 a.m. my time. It's always such a busy morning. I don't ever have time for breakfast, and I love having an IQ bar. I've got one actually right now, almond butter chip, one of my favorites. It's so handy. You can grab and go. It's such a brain-boosting breakfast to have. It sets you up to start the day right. I really, really enjoy and look forward to having an IQ bar every single morning.
I actually brought a couple to work to share with my coworker pals, and they actually have said to me how they love having them in the office because, you know, in the middle of the day, you get a little hungry, you need a little pick-me-up when you're tired.
Start each day right with IQ Bar's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. The ultimate sampler pack includes all three. Get 7 IQ Bar flavors, 4 IQ Mix flavors, and 4 IQ Joe flavors. And today, our listeners get an exclusive offer of 20% off plus free shipping. Just text CRIME to 64,000.
The Ultimate Sampler Pack is a great way to try all IQ Bar products and flavors, and all IQ Bar products are entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial sweeteners, so that is awesome. IQ Bar makes the #1 brain and body nutrition bar, hydration mix, and instant coffee in the US with over 10,000 5-star reviews and counting. So refuel smarter with IQ Bar's Ultimate Sampler Pack. That's 7 IQ Bars, 4 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. And our special podcast listeners get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus get free shipping. To get your 20% off, just text CRIME to 64,000. Get your discount, text CRIME to 64,000. That's CRIME to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. Today we are going to talk about the case of Chad Doerman, who was 33 years old. This one happened in 2023, June 2023. He killed his 3 sons in like a horrific scene, but a lot of information's actually come out about this case. So we're going to get into all of that and like what happened that day. So just to warn you, it is about child murder, and there's not like graphic, but it's definitely upsetting, the story, and there's upsetting details about what happened that day. So just a warning.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, I know, like some people are like, why are you giving warnings? All these crimes are horrendous, but I feel like this one, there are some especially horrendous details. Very, very sad for these kids. So yeah, absolutely. I think a warning's warranted.
Even though it happened in June 2023, it's been in the headlines still because Chad Doerman, he was just sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And as I mentioned, he murdered his 3 sons. There was Clayton, who was 7, Hunter, who was 4, and Chase, who was 3. This happened specifically on June 15th, 2023 in Ohio.
911, where's your emergency?
June 15th, 2023, residents in rural Claremont County, Ohio, call 911 after hearing gunshots at a neighbor's home.
There's a girl running down the street being like her stepbrother is killing everyone in her family.
First responders race to the house and make a horrifying discovery.
3 children have been shot, not breathing.
Police found the bodies of 3 young brothers lying in the front yard. 7-year-old Clayton, 4-year-old Hunter, and 3-year-old Chase. Their father, 32-year-old Chad Doerman, was sitting on the front steps when officers arrived.
Stand up! Stand the up! Get your hand.
Yeah, the rifle main solid.
Investigators say all 3 boys were shot in the head.
State of Arts is Chad Doerman, 2023 CRA 1975.
Chad Doerman stood silently in the courtroom as the prosecutor described the death of one of his sons.
We know that one of the boys was able to flee into a field near the home. And again, we know from his admission, father hunted that boy down, drug him back to the property, and executed him in front of witnesses.
So the Doerman family consisted of Chad and Laura as the parents. Laura, she also has a daughter from a previous relationship who was 14 at the time of the murders. The daughter, she has been described as an outstanding student and a softball star, just as some background on her. And Chad, he worked as an insulator, and Laura was a stay-at-home mom. So Clayton, Chase, and Hunter, they were all described as active little boys, and they all loved baseball and fishing. By all accounts, the family seemed generally pretty normal and loving. During the legal process, we learned some more about what led up to the murders. So 5 days before, which would be June 10th, seemed like a normal day. Chad and the boys had a boys' day together, and Laura had a girls' day with her daughter. The Claremont County prosecutor said that at this point there wasn't any indication of trouble. And then the following day, June 11th, Chad took the boys fishing, and again, seemed like a pretty normal day. There was no reports of any strange behavior, but Chad would later give detectives conflicting information regarding his sleep patterns. The following day, June 12th, his colleague said that nothing really seemed out of the ordinary with Chad. He, again, though, would later give conflicting statements to detectives about his sleep. And on June 14th, Chad left for work around 5 to 6 a.m. that day. And on the day, he woke up his stepdaughter, which was not usual behavior, so this was a little strange. And he apologized for anything that he had ever done to hurt her, which would be pretty weird at 5 to 6 in the morning of being woken up as a teen to have your stepdad apologize for anything he ever did to hurt you. Yeah. Definitely strange. So that day, though, his coworkers said they didn't notice anything unusual during the day, and after work he went to coach his son's baseball game. Other parents said he seemed a little distracted, but nothing overly strange about his behavior. Chad would later tell officers that he could not sleep at all that night. So I think all the sleep stuff is also because if sleep deprivation can really make you crazy, I feel like this was going on longer than that, but not sleeping can really mess you up in more ways than people would initially assume.
Yeah, I've also seen it discussed that people speculate he wasn't sleeping because he'd already decided to do this. So, like, they're kind of two sides of the story. Either he was sleep deprived and that kind of put him over the edge, or he was actually not sleeping because he knew what he was going to do.
Yeah. I've seen that too. I think he says that later on, but I just think not sleeping in general makes you less likely to be like,
Exacerbates
whoa, whoa, whoa,
everything.
this is a bad idea. So the day of the murders was Thursday, June 15th, 2023. And while on his way to work, Chad searched for the song Happy in Hell by Colt Ford. Investigators highlighted some of the lyrics of the song, so this is what they pointed out. The lyrics say, "Between happy and hell, that's where I'm living now. I really want to love her, but I just don't think that I know how. Can't give her everything she needs. Can I give her everything I want? Am I her shining light or just her darkest day? I wonder if she'll leave. Hell, I wonder if she'll stay. Oh God, I'm so confused. Is it a lie or truth? I'm in the crossroads. Tell me which one to choose. Is there a right or wrong? It's getting hard to tell. I need to know the price. Ensure I'd buy or sale." So Chad then went to Kroger at 9:42 a.m. that day. He walked to the vitamin section and then to the little clinic counter. Chad told his mother that he was having confusing feelings, but he hadn't elaborated on what those feelings were. And Chad didn't tell Laura how he was feeling either. Chad left the little clinic after a few minutes and he didn't see anyone there. Chad left work early that day, which was abnormal behavior for him. He got a 16-ounce Bud Light and went to the shed to do yard work when he arrived home. Laura arrived home with the kids. They'd been running errands, and the boys ran excitedly to greet Chad. Laura went inside and made lunch for the family. Chad went into the kitchen to eat, and he told Laura, "This will be my last good meal." Laura would later say that she thought that Chad may have been planning to take his own life. I just have so many questions about what did she say to that? Was this normal for him to say things like that where you weren't like, what are you talking about? I feel like he was
Like, do you
acting
need help
strangely for a
or
while
yeah.
though. Yeah.
Yeah.
After lunch, Chad called his father and said, this is another one where I'm like, why is everyone just like, Called his father and said, Clayton is going to be the hardest one. Chad's father has said that he didn't understand the context of this statement at the time. So that's why, like, is he just always speaking nonsense and they're just like, okay.
Yeah, like I can't even imagine if someone said that to me. I'd be like, "What are you talking about?" Like I wouldn't
Yeah, I'd
just
be like,
be like,
what?
"Oh, yeah."
So Chad spent the rest of the day doing yard work and playing with the kids. And just to be clear, I'm not trying to like victim blame or blame anyone for not being like, what are you talking about? Because I know it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. Like if he's always saying crazy things and nothing happens, you're just like, oh, there's Chad being Chad again,
Yeah.
looking for attention or something. So I wasn't trying to make it seem like they did something wrong. I just think it's interesting. So in the afternoon, Chad got out a Bible and started reading it to Hunter, which is always a red flag in these stories, especially if they don't really say about him, but he doesn't give the vibe of someone who regularly like reads the Bible to his children. So red flag to just start doing that. And as he was doing that, he was mumbling, "Chad knows what's right." Soon after, Laura found him opening the gun safe, which was in the master bedroom, and she said, "You're scaring me." And he said, "I'm just playing." At 4 p.m., Chad asked Laura and the boys to nap with him in the master bedroom. After they all laid down, Chad got out of the bed and went for the .22 rifle in the gun safe. Laura thought that Chad was going to use the gun to kill himself, and all of the family were pleading for him to put the gun down, and they were telling him that they loved him, which is that line I don't understand. Like the kids were so young, and they're like to say they're pleading with him to not end his life and saying they love him. Like I don't know. That just how do they even really realize what's happening? Like I just can't imagine.
The last
what
thing that
these
you would
kids
probably
went through.
think would be that he's getting the gun out to use it on them. Like they'd be like, no, like I'm just obviously imagining and speculating, but it would be like, no, Dad, don't do it. We love you. We love you. It would just be, it's horrible.
I don't know. But I don't know. I guess like maybe if they had a lot of guns in the gun safe and stuff, they were more aware as to what guns are. But I'm like, they were so little, like to even realize what that is or what's going on. I mean, granted, it could also have just been Laura pleading with him and then them being like, yeah, we love you. So from there, Laura tried to call 911, but Chad grabbed the phone from her and said it's too late. Chad lifted the rifle and pointed it at Hunter first. He began firing. Laura screamed to the kids to start running as she tried to help Hunter and call 911. Chad can be heard in the background of the call screaming at Laura to get up and to stop helping Hunter. The other kids can be heard screaming in the background. Laura carried Hunter out of the house and into the yard where she was screaming for help. Clayton and Laura's daughter ran outside and Chase was still in the house. Chad saw Clayton and shot him. The child fell to the ground. Chad went up to him and, quote, calmly shot him twice in the head. Laura's daughter ran back into the house to get Chase, the 3-year-old. She got him and they attempted to flee. Chad caught up to them, and the girl can be heard on the Ring camera saying, "Please don't hurt me." And Chad forced the girl to put Chase down. Very brave of her to go back into the house for Chase instead of just leaving.
Yeah.
So after Chad forced her to put Chase down, she ran towards the Monroe Township Fire Department, which was near their home. And according to court documents, she was stopped by a passerby and advised that her father was killing everyone.
Can you tell how many people have been shot?
I think 2 children.
Okay. All right. I need. What was
that
your
I've seen?
There's a girl running down the street saying that her stepfather is killing everyone in her family.
And what did the female say to you?
And she says that her stepfather is killing everybody in her house. I did. I'm on the phone with them right now.
Did she say how or what was happening?
I asked her to get in the car with me, and she said she couldn't leave her family.
So Chase, he ran towards some trash cans to try and hide, and Chad attempted to shoot him, but the magazine was empty. Laura ran to the rifle and placed her thumb over the barrel to stop Chad from shooting it. Chad fired the gun anyway, through her thumb, and executed Chase right in front of her. Laura was able to call 911 for a second time, 5 minutes after the first call disconnected, and she told the dispatcher, "My children are shot, my children are not breathing, and no one is helping me." Chad would get all the boys and lay them next to each other. 9 total shots were fired. 1 boy was shot once, the other 2 were shot 4 times each. When Claremont County Sheriff's deputies arrived on the scene, they demand that Chad put his hands up and walk slowly towards them. They wrestled him to the ground and handcuffed him without incident. Laura screamed, which was captured on the officer's body cam video, "He took my life from me." While on the ground, Chad told the officers that he was not going to hurt them while his 3 sons lay lifeless in the yard.
Where's he at?
The shooter's still on the porch.
Get him right here. You got him on the porch.
We've asked, that's the last place we've been told.
You show me your hands now! Stand up and walk towards us! Stand up now! Walk towards us! Stand up with your hands up!
We know we got a visual in the mail. Not showing his hands, not following commands.
Stand up now!
Not showing hands or following commands. His name is Chad Doerman. Chad Doerman.
I know, but we can't.
If people need first aid and he's not complying, and you know he's a shooter, shoot him.
We gotta find cover first. We ain't no good if we ain't safe ourselves. Hey, no. We need to come from this side where we can see them. Don't take cover behind her. We see them. We're going to approach from this side. We got cover. Right here.
6 numbers, 29 and 63 attack on
Show us your fucking hands now! Stand up! Stand up! Stand up! Stand up now! Stand up! Stand the fuck up!
EMS is staged and air carriers are going to go ahead and fly whenever any units can arrive.
Get your hands out here. 72. Tell me 21. It's in the air.
If those guys can confirm that there's people that need first aid and that's the shooter who's not complying, they need to take care of the
I got it.
victims. They have to shoot him and shoot him.
Man, I ain't trying to hurt nobody. We're completely sober. Never did drugs a day in my life.
21. Get the EMS over here.
Well, I did drugs when I was little, but I don't do drugs now. I'm sober. I'm not trying to fight you.
63.
Get your butt inside. Gatlin, get your butt inside.
We on primary?
Now.
29, we got 3 kids down.
3 kids down, 16 feet up.
yelling?
63, we're 21. Have EMS respond over here.
You're clear, they're being advised.
Robert 34, just started mass casualty response.
63, do you want them to respond to the Laurel Lindale address? Where exactly do you need them?
We're right in the front yard. What are you doing, man?
Hey, are you copying all this?
Can I roll over? I ain't gonna hurt you. I ain't gonna hurt nobody.
You got anything on you?
No, I ain't got nothing, man. Phone, that's it. I ain't mad. I ain't nothing. Just make sure that dog don't come out. I don't think he'll bite you. Just don't reach for him and try to grab him and pet him.
All right.
He won't bite you.
What's going on, man?
Nothing. Can I stand up? It's kind of uncomfortable.
I'm gonna
I
get
ain't
you
gonna
here
do
in a
nothing. I ain't
second.
running away. You can do whatever you want with me.
Deputies placed Chad in a cruiser where he's heard on body cam video saying, "Tell them I did it. Take me to jail." When Chad arrived at the jail, he was interviewed about what had taken place. The prosecutor said Chad acted like he had no idea that the boys were dead. He said it was like a game to him. The detectives asked who his kids were, and he listed them in this order: Hunter, Clayton, and Chase, which is the same order that he killed them. He also told police that he should have killed Laura first. He would later say that he hadn't slept well for 3 or 4 days because the thoughts of having to kill his sons was so heavy on him. Court documents from June 2023 state the defendant confessed to planning and carrying out the deaths of the victims involved for several months. June 2023, WKRC filed an open records request in relation to Chad's criminal past. The Communications Center had dispatched the police to the Doerman home 3 times since 2020, and one of those times was this time where the boys were shot and killed.
I couldn't find what the other 2 times were. There's no history, it seems, of domestic violence or anything like that, but I would be interested to know what the other 2 times were.
The search of court records showed only traffic violations in Claremont County, with the exception of a criminal damaging complaint from when Chad was 18. There's also a domestic violence case 2 years later that showed he choked his dad, and both of those cases were dismissed. So it seems like he maybe had a little bit of a violent streak, but not anything that would lead you to think this would happen. So a records request was filed with the Claremont County CPS to see if there were any records for the Doerman family, and the answer was, there are no records responsive to your request. There also didn't seem to be any financial issues for the family. According to the county's auditor's website, Chad had purchased his converted manufactured home on 3 acres in 2016 for $75,000. That's so cheap. Usually if there are mortgage issues, you would see a lapse in property tax payments, but the Doerman family was up to date through 2023. In March 2024, Chad pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity due to serious mental illness. And these are the illnesses that are covered under that provision. It's schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder, and delusional disorder. Chief Assistant Prosecuting Attorney Lara Allen requested a psychiatric evaluation for Chad at the Central Clinic Behavioral Health Center. But Chad was not found to have any sort of serious mental illness that completely blocked his judgment between right and wrong. While he may have exhibited some symptoms of mental illness, he knew that what he was doing was wrong overall. And I feel like we've said that about a lot of cases where people try to plead insanity or anything. It's like you can be having mental illness or symptoms of mental illness, but a lot of times you still know right from wrong or that what you're doing is wrong. So Chad had never been prescribed medication or diagnosed with any mental health issues. Chad also denied being the shooter. The prosecutor said, "Why would you deny doing an act unless you knew it was wrong?" It's kind of going back to what we were saying of like, he knows it's wrong, where he's like, I didn't do it. Whereas if you didn't know, why would you be denying it? Chad's interviews with officers proved he knew it was wrong also. He also called his mother from prison. He said he didn't want to meet with a psychiatrist because it would not get him anything. When asked if he felt bad about what he did, he said no. He also called his brother 2 weeks after the murders. And at that time, he compared himself to Adolf Hitler as they'd both made news across the world. I don't really think you made news across the world, but
Yeah.
Chad's father, Keith, said that he had no exact explanation for what happened, adding that his son just snapped. His father said, "I could tell in his eyes he's hollow inside. That wasn't Chad standing at the arraignment. That was not him." A neighbor spoke to the media and said that Chad seemed to have anger issues. The neighbor said, "He was angry every day. There wasn't a day he didn't yell at his wife and kids out there." He said that Chad had a temper, yelling all the time and treating his wife like shit. Which I love that, because you always get a neighbor who's like, "No, like they seem pretty normal. I didn't like expect anything." And this neighbor's like, "No, he was shit. He treated his wife like shit. He was always mad, yelling at everyone." Prosecutors ended up reaching a plea deal in the case, and Chad will spend the rest of his life in jail without the possibility of parole. Originally, Chad faced 9 counts of aggravated murder and other charges of kidnapping and felonious assault, and a total of a 21 count indictment. He pleaded guilty to 3 counts of aggravated murder and 2 counts of felonious assault. The plea deal was agreed upon by the surviving victims as well. Prosecutors said the decision was made to prevent further harm to the family. So I guess like going through a trial would be very traumatic for all of them. So this is kind of the best thing for everyone. Laura said that her and her daughter were grievously injured. In a letter that was read in court, Laura had a message for those who may be struggling with their mental health or know someone who is, and she encouraged others to call a crisis hotline, dial 988, or ask for help if someone is considering hurting themselves or others. She wrote, "Violence is never the answer." While Chad admitted to the crimes and has been sentenced, one thing still remains a mystery. Why did he do it? And prosecutors say that they're still unsure. And that's really it for like what happened that day. I'd be curious to know why he did it. It does seem like there was definitely mental illness, but not enough to be like he had no idea what he was doing. Especially saying he was plotting it for months.
Yeah,
like
months.
You're not in psychosis for months.
And like this, because we've posted about this on our Instagram too, and a lot of people have commented saying, absolutely, he knew what he was doing. He wasn't schizophrenic, or he didn't have the illness that prevented him from, knowing that what he was doing was wrong. But I would also
and he was going to work.
To know. Yeah, I would be so interested to know what the catalyst for this was. Like, obviously, you've said they didn't have any financial issues. Like, a lot of times that drives people to do desperate things, but that doesn't seem like it was the case here. I wonder what his motivation was, and we will maybe never know. But just there must have been something that tipped him over the edge and when he decided to do this.
Well, it reminds me also a little of like Chris Benoit, the wrestler. He had CTE, but it kind of just seems like he snapped one day, and he had the religious stuff. He brought the Bible and like put it with the bodies, and he killed his wife and son. And then there was also Matthew Coleman, who we've talked about before. He killed his 2 kids with the spear fishing gun. And same with him, like he's got very like religious and seemed like in a psychosis to a sense. But with Chris Benoit, I think he knew what he did was wrong because he also killed himself. And then with Matthew Coleman, I think he also knew what he was doing was wrong because he hid the bodies over the border in Mexico. So it seems like you could still have pretty bad, I don't know the terms for it, but you can have pretty severe like a mental illness or like a snap, as people say, like he just snapped, but like still be aware of what you're doing is wrong. So just very curious about what his thinking was leading up to this. And the fact that he performed still normally at work and was at the games and no other people really noticed him acting extremely bizarre. Seems like he wasn't totally in a state of psychosis where he had no idea what was going on. So there are obituaries for the boys. We'll have them, like excerpts from them on the blog. And if you want to read more about each of them, it just kind of goes into a little bit about them and how, they like to play with their brothers. They like baseball, loves playing baseball, love their dog, things like that. Very sad. So you could check that out on the blog as well.
I just feel like even when I knew about this case, I kind of followed it as it was happening and as the legal process went on. But when they released the information about the last moments of the boys, the terror they must have felt, like when that little boy ran and tried to hide in the garbage cans, God, it just breaks my heart. It's unfathomable.
It reminded me of the Bever family murders too, where the kids were just like trying to hide. And yeah, it's like shocking, sickening, because a lot of times you don't really get all the details like that, because I feel like a lot of times the person doing this kills themselves or everyone that was involved is dead. So it's so scary to think about what they went through.
So the second case we're going to discuss is another one that's been in the media lately because the trial has just wrapped up and there's been, I guess, some type of resolution. It's about the murder of 6-year-old Corey Micciolo by his father, Christopher Gregor, who was 32, in Monroe Township, New Jersey. It's interesting, too, that both of these were in a Monroe Township, different states, but
Oh, yeah.
because she ran to the Monroe Township Fire Department. So Christopher has just been sentenced to 25 years in state prison. As some background into the victim, which was Corey, he was born on the 1st of May in 2014, and his mother was Breanna. According to media reports, a lot of the media call her Bree, B-R-E, so we'll just call her that because that seems to be what she is referred to mostly. She was 17 when she gave birth, and Christopher was 22. Bree's mother, Rebecca, said that Bree got pregnant after she was sexually assaulted by Christopher, and she said that the two never had a relationship. Christopher's attorney has denied that, though. The attorney said to Inside Edition, unfortunately, Rebecca, as in her mother, has a very vivid imagination. So Bree raised Corey on her own for the first 5 years of his life until Christopher petitioned for joint custody. As some insight into Corey, his family have said that he enjoyed playing football, and he was very excited to recently participate in his first team practice. He liked to play Roblox and had an interest in the solar system, planets in space, and he enjoyed playing with his friends in the park and at the trampoline park. They've also said that he loved art and drawing. He seems like a really sweet little boy.
Yeah.
So Corey's living situation changed in 2019. He was made to have overnight visits with Christopher on August 28th. The first one was August 28th, 2019. In September that year, after the third visit, Bree first became concerned about Corey's safety. She said that he came home with a, quote, busted lip and a, quote, swollen face, but neither he or his father would say what happened. Bree said she took photos of his injuries and submitted them along with the little information that she had to DCPP. From that point on, whenever Corey came home injured, Bree said she documented the injuries and reported them. She said that she made over 100 calls to DCPP in 18 months and she filed multiple complaints that Christopher had been beating Corey. She said they made it seem to be that I was bothering them. She said basically that the response from DCPP, which was essentially no response, kind of emboldened Christopher and made him worse. She said the more he got away with it, the worse the abuse got. And he was aware that the first time I reported it was in September 2019. So the media have asked for a statement from DCPP and they haven't responded to any requests so far from them for a statement. As of October 2019, Corey started living with Christopher and his parents as part of a joint custody order. Christopher assumed residential custody in January 2020. I believe that this may have been due to Bree having some addiction issues. She apparently relapsed on drugs in December 2020. She had previously had meth addiction. She also relapsed in February 2021. She apparently tried to buy drugs again on April 2nd, 2021, but she has said that she didn't get them and she hasn't used since. The abuse was still ongoing as of 2021. On March 20th of that year, there's CCTV, which is kind of infamous now. You may have already seen some clips of it, but it's basically Corey and Christopher in the gym of Christopher's apartment complex. You can see Corey running on a treadmill as his father increases the speed. So he's running, trying to catch up this poor little boy.
He's running very fast.
Yeah. In the video, Corey falls and stumbles multiple times and Christopher can be seen grabbing Corey by his shirt and at one point it looks like he actually bites Corey's head. There's video of it. It is quite disturbing. I'll pop it on the blog if you want to check it out because it's horrific.
He probably falls off the treadmill at least 5-6 times in the video and the dad just keeps picking him up and like putting him back on it, but not, you know, like when you try to get on a moving treadmill from just standing, it's very hard to do. And this at a high speed, so he just keeps falling because he's putting him back on the treadmill from standing still while a treadmill's on a high speed. So just like set up to fail to begin with, basically. The whole thing is just awful.
So after the treadmill incident on March 28th, Bree called police to ask for a child welfare check. She said that she'd noticed that Corey had extensive bruising. 2 officers, Daniel Dugan and Angel Roman, went and spoke with Christopher and Corey. They said they saw Corey's bruises but didn't feel he was in imminent danger. They've said that he appeared to have a good relationship with Christopher and they reported their findings to DCPP. On March 31, so just a few days later, Bree filed an emergency order seeking full custody of Corey. but her application was denied on April 1. A judge ordered a child abuse examination within 7 days. So this info about the examination is from Jersey Shore Online. It says, Breanna took Corey to Dr. Nancy Deacon, who noted 14 bruises and referred them to a medical centre. Due to time constraints, though, Breanna went to a different facility. Christopher texted the DCPP caseworker, Mark, stating that he couldn't take off work the next day. The medical centre offered to transport Corey, but Breanna then decided to take him to the other medical centre that was recommended in the first place. And she told Christopher that she was heading there. Christopher texted 3 women on that day about Corey not being home on time. So Breanna was taken to the medical centre and Christopher was texting all these women basically saying that Breanna hadn't returned him in time. Christopher demanded that Breanna leave the medical centre. A doctor there documented numerous bruises and scratches on Corey, including a significant bruise on his sternum. So basically Christopher forced Breanna to leave and Christopher remained at this medical centre with Corey. So following the kind of welfare check and examination, April 2 we're at now, at 3:08 p.m, Christopher searched the internet for lost consciousness, sleepy and nauseous. He called Breanna at 3:30 to ask for their insurance card so that he could take Corey to the hospital, and he got to the Southern Ocean Medical Centre at 3:48 p.m, so 40 minutes after he'd made that Google search, they arrived at the hospital. Corey said he brought his son there because the boy woke up from a nap stumbling, slurring his words, and that Corey was also experiencing nausea and shortness of breath. They rushed Corey in for a CT scan where he began having seizures, and they tried to carry out life-saving measures on him. But Corey passed away at 5:03 p.m. He died alone, just with the doctors. There was no family members with him. So Christopher called his parents, and apparently he was said to be distraught when he told them that Corey had died. Chris's mother, Carolyn, would later tell the jury during the trial, she said, Chris is hysterical. She said that he had taken Corey to the hospital because Corey was lethargic. And she went on to say, what did she do to him? He's screaming that on the phone, as in Christopher was saying that to his mother about Breanna, insinuating that Breanna had hurt the boy. And then she goes, and then he told me Corey passed away. So I called my husband and I'm flipping out. I was so worried. He was so adamant that something happened when Corey was with Breanna. So an autopsy was performed on Corey on April 3rd. Dr. Dante Ragusa found that the cause of death was blunt force injuries with cardiac and liver contusions with acute inflammation and sepsis. However, he didn't rule on the manner of death. He deemed it as undetermined. So manner of death are things like natural, homicide, suicide. In this case, he didn't make a determination on what that would be for Corey. In September 2021, a forensic pathologist reviewed the case and determined that the manner of death was homicide. Dr. Thomas Andrews said that he believed Corey suffered an acute traumatic injury to the heart 4 to 12 hours before his death. He also found evidence of chronic abuse, including blunt impact injuries of the chest and abdomen with a laceration of the heart and laceration and contusions of the liver. So a lot of injuries for this child to have sustained over a period of time, it seems. Christopher was initially arrested for endangering the welfare of a child just before this review was carried out. He was arrested on July 7th, 2021 for the treadmill incident only. So it wasn't in regards to the death of Corey. It was mainly the abuse of Corey following the CCTV at the gym. Christopher ended up, though, being released due to New Jersey bail reform, but he was arrested again on March 9, 2022, and he was charged with Corey's murder. The police issued a statement and it said, the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office received a report from the state expert witness which indicated that Corey died as a result of blunt force impact of the chest and abdomen and determined that the manner of death to be homicide. And then it goes in to say that basically they've done an extensive investigation and that they determined that Corey was in Christopher's custody at the time that he sustained his life-ending injuries, and they alleged that Christopher was the individual responsible for Corey's death. So the case went to trial this year, 2024. The first day of the trial was April 30th. Much of the court content was kind of back and forth. Some days there's very limited information. So we've picked out the most relevant information to share. If you really, really want to deep dive into, kind of a minute by minute, sometimes where there's not actually much happening, but Court TV have a really good summary of the trial if you want to read more detail about day by day. On the first day, Christopher's attorney, Mario Gallucci, said that Christopher was a responsible father and was trying the best for his son. He did say that Breanna and Christopher had a hostile relationship. He also called in expert witnesses to try to prove that Corey died from natural causes. The The prosecution alleged at the trial that Corey was forced to run on the treadmill because Christopher said he was, quote, too fat and that he fell and he hit his head. An officer named Sergeant Raymond Coles testified at trial, and he spoke about Christopher's phone search history. He made searches in March and April of 2021, including will red marks turn into bruises? Can your phone be tracked in airplane mode? Can my car be tracked? So some very incriminating
It's
searches
always
there.
the Google searches.
Yeah, just like Justin Ross Harris, the last. I know, in the end he got acquitted, but yeah, there's these shady Google searches.
Yeah.
So Breanna did testify at the trial. She first spoke on day 2. The defense tried to attack her credibility. They mentioned that there was a GoFundMe that had been raised and basically kind of insinuated that she killed Corey, and was trying to profit off it. They talked about ways that she wanted to spend the GoFundMe money, so they kind of tried to attack her credibility and insinuate that she had motive for doing something to the child.
Yeah.
Corey's first grade teacher also testified, and she said that she had noticed that Corey had been bruised repeatedly, and she also said that his demeanor changed over time. She said he went from kind of being a happy, boisterous little boy to being quiet and withdrawn, and that she had noticed a change. The pediatrician that we mentioned earlier, Dr. Nancy Deacon, spoke about the injuries that she saw when they took Corey to the emergency appointment, that the judge ordered following the child welfare check. Okay. On the third day, Sergeant Matthew Scuddy spoke to the court about going to Christopher's home. He said that the smell of vomit was very strong in Corey's bedroom. He said basically it had been cleaned up, but you could still smell that someone had recently been sick and vomited in the bedroom. A triage nurse who worked at the centre where Corey was taken described Christopher as having a clinical nature, and the nurse said that he did not seem upset about Corey's injuries and condition. Sergeant Raymond Coles took the stand again, and he spoke about alleged attempts by Christopher to flee following Corey's death. He said that Christopher's phone was moving away from the hospital for 24 hours after the death with no attempts to return, and he also said that the phone was put into airplane mode, so kind of insinuating that Christopher didn't want anyone to track or know where he was. At the trial, we also learned some more about Christopher's internet search history. On April 3rd, which was one day after Corey died, Christopher conducted separate Google searches about blood sugar, white blood cell levels, internal bleeding, and gastrointestinal issues. So I guess trying to set up a story about why the child had these injuries and trying to, get his story straight.
Yeah.
The following day, April 4, so that's 2 days after the death, Christopher searched about the time frame for filing murder charges after an autopsy. So he clearly knew what was coming. A forensic pathologist named Dr. Michael Baden testified. He told jurors that he believed that Corey died from natural causes, most likely complications of pneumonia. This went against what Dr. Thomas Andrews said, and he said at the trial that Corey's death was due to homicide and physical abuse. Christopher invoked his right to remain silent. He did not testify at the trial. So after the trial wrapped up, on May 31, Christopher was found guilty of aggravated manslaughter and endangering the welfare of a child. His sentence was scheduled for this month, August, and on August 2, he was sentenced to 25 years in state prison. He received 20 years for aggravated manslaughter and 5 years for endangering the welfare of a child, and those will be served consecutively. Corey's grandmother, Rebecca, spoke at the sentencing about the effect that the death is having on her. She said, "I'm being treated for severe mental health disorders since Corey was murdered. PTSD, nightmare disorder, depression, and anxiety. I'm on several medications to get through the day. I can't work. I'm no longer living. I'm existing." There are full videos of the impact statements, and I'll pop them on the blog if you want to read them. Bree did give an impact statement. She's told Christopher, "You have stolen my full potential at happiness. I will never have my son back. My family will never feel whole again. My daughter will never get to meet her brother, and my boyfriend will never get to be the father that the defendant should have been to our son." So Christopher did speak at the sentencing, and he apologised, which I feel like this is such a token, ridiculous statement. "I understand this single moment will overshadow all of the others, but it's not representative of who I am, who Corey was, and his relationship with me and him. I want to assure you that I did nothing to cause Corey's passing. I didn't hurt my son. I love him, and I still do." So I feel like 25 years is a sentence, I guess. I feel like it's probably not long enough as punishment based on what Corey endured for years of his life. Like the abuse first started 2019. He, years and years he endured this horrible abuse.
Yeah, I feel like they couldn't go for harsher charges because there's not hardcore proof of exactly what happened, where they could maybe argue reasonable doubt if they went for something harder.
I believe too that they said that if they did give a harsher penalty, it wouldn't stand up under an appeal. So I guess they gave the max that they thought would withhold any appeal or any further legal process.
Yeah. And another thing I think is always interesting in cases like this, where I know it's typical abuser behavior, because really what most abusers crave is control. But it's like he's fighting the mom for more custody and more time with the kid just to abuse him. So it's like you don't even really want the kid. You don't even really want to spend time with the kid, because then this is what you do. You basically torture him and abuse him. So like just let him be with the mom, which I know in a perfect world, yes, or when the person isn't a narcissistic piece of shit abusive guy, that's what would happen. But it's like you're literally fighting and fighting and fighting to have this kid just to abuse them. The fact that the mom, Bree, went through so much trying to report him to CPS or whichever it was, and I feel like they just didn't really believe her, discredited her, because she seemed to be known to use drugs. So they're like, oh, she's just a crazy like drug addict, like making stuff up. Meanwhile, the kid did have bruises and stuff. I hope that she goes on to sue them or something.
Yeah, there surely has to be some repercussions for this lack of action, despite multiple repeated reports.
It seems like that happens a lot too, which is sad.
It seems like with Christopher, a lot of this was a control issue. Like he wanted to have the control over Bree, he wanted to have the control over the son. Yeah, like you said, he didn't actually seem to want to have the custody of the son for any other reason, but it would hurt Bree. He would have control over her. He would have control over the little boy.
It's almost like an ego thing too, because I feel like wasn't it something he texted like 3 other girls about how his son was not returned on time? I feel like he's like trying to put on this image of like, oh, I'm this dad fighting for my kid and I have custody of my kid, instead of being like, oh yeah, I don't have any custody. My kid's always with the mom because I'm a piece of shit. So I feel like it was almost like an ego thing for him too, to be like, I'm in control. I have custody of my kid and I'm going to like brag about it and make the mom look bad because I care so much about my ego.
It's just so horrible.
Yeah. I mean, I wish he got a worse sentence, but at least it's something.
No, I know we've had 2 weeks in a row of child death. Like we spoke about Justin Ross Harris and Tanner Ray last week. Obviously this one, so I know it's a lot for some people. We'll do something different next week, but I just felt like these 2 cases were both in the news lately and so many people are interested in them, so that's kind of why the timing of both episodes fell so close together. We do try and break it up, so we know that not everyone is into the same, or can have like
they're all horrible topics, but some people are more sensitive to some than others, so we try to switch up the rotation of the horrible topics.
Yeah.
Which is the best way to say something without, like, it sounds shitty no matter what you say, but...
Yeah. And because always
people
there'll be comments like, I can't do child death, I can't do murder. Some people, and obviously everyone has things that they are especially sensitive to, and we understand that.
Like, for me, it's crazy and sounds ridiculous, but I know other people are like this. It's animal death.
Yeah.
Some people are just sensitive to different things, or desensitized to different things.
Absolutely.
So anyways, that is it for this episode. Like we mentioned, we'll have blogs for these cases, and we'll have some more of the like obituaries, the videos, and all that on there. You can find them at truecrimesocietyblog.com. And make sure you're following us on Instagram. We're always posting updates and everything on there. So if anything else comes out of these cases, I don't think these specifically, much more will happen, but like with Matthew Perry we were talking about, any of the newer cases, make sure you're following us there at True Crime Society on Instagram. And if you want to follow our personal accounts, mine is StephSum_. Olivia's TCS Olivia, if you want to see what we're up to on a day-to-day basis. And make sure you check out our Patreon if you want more content from us. We do weekly bonus episodes, so that'd be 2 episodes a week. All the episodes are ad-free, so if you don't want to hear any ads, check out the Patreon. And we also release the regular episodes a day earlier. And then we have some fun chats on Patreon and do other posts on Patreon too. So check us out there. And as usual, if you could share the podcast, your Instagram stories, or share it with a friend, that's a big help to us. And leave us some nice reviews, stars on Spotify. And that's it. So thank you guys for listening. Stay safe out there. Peace out.
See ya.